You know, I've always believed that there are two kinds of women in this world, those who are loyal and those who can't be trusted. It's not something I came up with overnight. It's just something I've seen over and over. It's what my father used to tell me too. He would say, "Michael, a good woman will stand by you through anything, but a bad one, well, she'll destroy you when you least expect it." For as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be with a woman who was loving, loyal, and who I could build a future with. I dreamed about that simple happiness, growing old together, sharing our lives, and having someone who would be by my side no matter what. That was the dream, right? Happiness until the end. And honestly, I thought I had that with Lisa. We've been married for over a decade, and not once did I think she'd betray me. Why would she? We had our ups and downs, sure, but who doesn't? Still, there was this deep-seated fear inside me, the kind of fear you don't talk about. The fear that one day you'd come home and everything you thought you knew about your life would be shattered. But not Lisa. I had doubts about a lot of things, but never about her. She wasn't like that, I told myself. I didn't have the money or status that some men did, and I wasn't always the most successful guy when it came to relationships. But Lisa, she was different. She was loyal. She had to be. I wouldn't allow myself to think otherwise. I guess I was living in a bubble, in a way, a belief bubble. We build these walls around our minds to protect what we think is true, to keep out anything that might crack the foundation. But deep down, a part of me always wondered, what if? What if it wasn't true? What if the loyalty I believed in wasn't real? You don't think about these things in your day-to-day life. You push them down. You move on. But sometimes, all it takes is one small thing to pop that bubble. And once it's popped, there's no going back. It was a day like any other, really. I wasn't looking for anything, wasn't suspicious, wasn't digging around. I don't even remember why I was in Lisa's purse that day. I think I was just trying to find her car keys or maybe a receipt, something completely innocent. But that's when I saw it, a hotel key. I remember just staring at it for a second, confused. My mind didn't go straight to the worst conclusion. Why would it? It's just a key, right? But then something clicked in the back of my mind. We hadn't stayed in any hotel recently. In fact, I couldn't remember the last time we went anywhere that would involve a hotel room. I picked it up, turned it over in my hand, like it was some foreign object I'd never seen before. And I swear, my stomach dropped. You know that feeling? That gnawing pit that opens up when something feels wrong. My mind started racing. Maybe she just picked it up by accident, I thought. Or maybe it belonged to a friend. There had to be an explanation, right? But there was this voice inside me, a voice I tried to push away, that kept whispering, "What if it's not innocent? What if there's something more?" I couldn't stop thinking about it. Suddenly, every little thing that didn't seem like a big deal before, now it felt different. The times she stayed out late with friends, or how distant she seemed some days. Was I just being paranoid? Or was this key, this stupid little hotel key, some kind of proof that everything I thought about my marriage was a lie? I put the key back in her purse and walked away like nothing happened. But something had happened. In that moment, something shifted. I couldn't shake the feeling that my life, as I knew it, was about to change. And I couldn't stop asking myself, is this the beginning of the end? A few days went by, and I couldn't get that hotel key out of my head. It was just sitting there, this small, stupid thing. But it had turned into something so much bigger in my mind. I kept telling myself not to jump to conclusions. Don't be that guy, I thought. Don't let your insecurities get the best of you. but that nagging feeling wouldn't go away. Then it happened. I was outside, talking with my neighbor Jim. He's a friendly guy, been living next door for years. We were just making small talk, and I was trying to act normal, keep things light. But then, out of nowhere, Jim says, "Hey, I saw Lisa the other day. Didn't know you guys were staying at the Maple Inn." I froze. I didn't even hear the rest of what he said. My heart started pounding. "What did you just say?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could feel my hands trembling. "The Maple Inn," Jim said again, completely casual, like he had no idea what he'd just dropped on me. "I saw Lisa going in there the other night. Thought you guys were having a little getaway or something." I didn't know what to say. My mind went blank, and the world felt like it was closing in on me. Lisa, the Maple Inn, the hotel key. It all came crashing down at once. I tried to play it cool. I really did. I forced a laugh and said, "Oh yeah, something like that." But inside, I was screaming. That key wasn't some mistake. This wasn't some innocent coincidence. Lisa was at that hotel. The rest of the conversation with Jim was a blur. I don't even know what he said after that. All I could think about was Lisa, her going to that hotel, the lies she must have told, the secrets she was keeping from me. I remember walking back into the house, everything feeling different. This was no longer just suspicion. Now, I had confirmation. From someone outside of us. It wasn't just in my head anymore. It was real. I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't push it down and pretend nothing was wrong. Lisa was going to hotels. Without me. I wasn't sure what to do next, but I knew one thing for sure. My life wasn't going to be the same from this point on. After that conversation with Jim, I felt like I was spiraling. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about Lisa, started to unravel. It wasn't just about the hotel key anymore. It was about me, about what I wasn't. You see, I've never been the guy who had it all together. I didn't come from money, never had the kind of status or success that some guys do. I've always been ordinary. I worked hard, but there was always this part of me that felt like I wasn't quite enough. And now, with this thing with Lisa, all those old doubts came rushing back. Was this happening because I wasn't enough for her? Had I failed as a husband? As a man? I started picking apart every little thing I'd done over the years. Every time I hadn't been able to give her what she needed. Every argument where I backed down. Every opportunity I missed to make more money, to climb higher. I kept asking myself, what if I'd been more successful? What if I'd made more money or given her a better life? Would she have stayed? Would she still be loyal? It's a dark place to be, feeling like your worth as a person is tied to your bank account, to the job you have, or the house you can provide. I guess deep down, I'd always feared that one day, Lisa might see through me, see that I wasn't as strong, or as successful, or as capable as I pretended to be. Maybe that's why this was happening now, because she finally saw what I was so afraid to admit to myself. I started looking at myself in the mirror differently. Instead of seeing the man she fell in love with, all I saw were my flaws, my failures. Every time I looked at her after that, I couldn't help but wonder if she had been comparing me to someone else, someone better. And what scared me the most was the possibility that she might be right. Maybe I wasn't enough for her. Maybe I wasn't enough for anyone. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just make you question the other person, it makes you question yourself. It eats away at your self-worth, makes you doubt everything about who you are. And the more I thought about it, the more I started to believe that maybe I deserved this. Maybe I'd been fooling myself all along. I couldn't keep it inside any longer. The key, Jim's words, the sleepless nights, it was all too much. I knew I had to confront her. There was no turning back now. I had to know the truth, even if it tore me apart. So one evening, after dinner, I sat Lisa down. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel my hands sweating. This was it. I was about to put everything on the line. I didn't know what I was expecting, but I knew I couldn't live with the lies anymore. I took a deep breath and said, "Lisa, I found something in your purse the other day." She looked up at me, confused at first, maybe a little nervous. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice a bit too casual. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the hotel key. I found this." Her face went pale. For a moment she didn't say anything, just stared at the key like it was a ticking time bomb. I watched her reaction, hoping, begging, that she would have some kind of explanation, something that made sense. But she didn't. She just sat there, silent. Then I pushed harder. "Jim saw you. He saw you at the Maple Inn. I need you to tell me the truth, Lisa. I can't live like this anymore. What's going on?" There it was. Everything out in the open. No more pretending. No more acting like things were fine. I'd thrown it all on the table, and now I just had to wait for her to pick it up. Her eyes filled with tears, and she started to shake her head. "It's not what you think, Michael," she said, her voice cracking. "I swear it's not." "Then what is it, Lisa? Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty clear to me. You're sneaking off to hotels, lying to me, and now I find this key. What am I supposed to think?" I could hear the anger in my voice, the hurt. It was all bubbling up, and I couldn't control it anymore. I didn't want to yell, didn't want to let the emotions take over, but I felt like I was drowning, and this was my last chance to come up for air. Lisa started crying, really crying, and I didn't know if it was because she felt guilty or if she was just scared. "I messed up," she said through her sobs. "I didn't mean for it to happen, but..." "But what, Lisa? What did you do?" She couldn't answer, not right away, and that silence, that pause, told me everything I needed to know. There was no denying it anymore. She had betrayed me. She had betrayed us. In that moment, everything felt surreal. This woman sitting in front of me, the woman I had built my life with, the woman I trusted more than anyone, she had been living a lie. And now, that lie was out in the open, exposed, and there was no way to take it back. I wanted to scream, to demand more answers, to make sense of everything. But at the same time, I felt numb, like part of me had already accepted what was happening. Part of me had known for a long time. So I just stood there, looking at her, trying to figure out what came next. What do you do when the person you trusted most in the world turns out to be someone you don't even recognize? I didn't know the answer to that. I wasn't sure I ever would. After that night, everything changed between us. There was no more pretending, no more brushing things under the rug. The truth was out, and now I had to face it. But even with everything I knew, everything Lisa had admitted, there was this question burning inside me. Should I stay or should I leave? It wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. You'd think, after something like this, the answer would be clear. She betrayed me. She broke my trust. That should have been enough to walk away. But it wasn't. I kept thinking about the life we built together, the years of memories, the good times we shared. Those moments felt like they belonged to a different life, a different version of us, but they were still there. And part of me wasn't ready to let all of that go. I kept asking myself if this one terrible thing was enough to erase everything else. Was it really enough to end our marriage? And then there was the other part of me, the part that was angry, hurt, and broken. The part that felt like I could never look at her the same way again. Every time I thought about staying, I'd get this knot in my stomach, thinking about what she'd done, thinking about how she'd lied to me day after day while pretending everything was fine. I'd trusted her with everything, and she shattered that trust. How do you come back from that? I would go back and forth in my mind over and over. Some days, I thought maybe we could fix things, maybe we could find a way to rebuild what was broken. Other days, I couldn't stand the sight of her, couldn't bear to think about staying in the same house with her. And then there was the fear of being alone. We'd been together for so long, I didn't even know what my life looked like without her in it. As much as I was angry and hurt, I was also scared. Scared of starting over, scared of what the future would look like if I walked away. Would I regret leaving her? Would I be able to move on? Or would I always be haunted by the what-ifs? It wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about everything. About the life we'd built, about the man I'd become in this marriage. And I had to ask myself, was I ready to throw all of that away? I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, trying to weigh the options. Stay, and maybe live in a constant state of doubt and hurt. Or leave, and lose the person I thought I'd spend my life with. Neither option felt right. Both felt like I was going to lose something important. And then there was the trust. Could I ever really trust her again? Even if we tried to move past this, would I ever be able to look at her without wondering if she was lying, without questioning everything she said, everywhere she went? The more I thought about it, the more confused I became. I didn't have the answers. I didn't know what the right decision was. All I knew was that the life I thought I had was gone, and now I had to figure out what came next. In the end, the decision wasn't just about Lisa, it was about me, about what I was willing to live with, and what I couldn't. And I wasn't sure if I could live with the person I'd become if I stayed. I realized I couldn't handle this on my own. The thoughts in my head were spinning in circles, and every time I thought I had an answer, the doubt crept back in. I needed to talk to someone who could give me a fresh perspective, someone who wasn't living inside this mess the way I was. So I called up my brother. He's always been the one I could talk to when life felt too heavy. I figured if anyone could help me think straight, it'd be him. We met up for a beer, and at first, I didn't even know how to start the conversation. How do you tell someone that the person you've been with for years, the person they know and love, betrayed you? But eventually, it all came spilling out. The key, the hotel, the neighbor, everything. My brother just listened, nodding, letting me get it all out. When I finally finished, he took a long sip of his drink and said, "Man, I'm sorry. I can't even imagine how you must be feeling right now." I expected him to have all the answers, but he didn't. And maybe that was okay. He didn't try to tell me what to do, didn't give me some one-size-fits-all solution. What he did say, though, was something I hadn't thought about before. "Mike, you gotta figure out what you can live with. At the end of the day, it's your life, your marriage. Nobody else can make this decision for you. But whatever you choose, just make sure it's something you can live with. Not just for now, but for the long haul." It wasn't the answer I was looking for, but it was the truth. I left that conversation feeling not better, but a little more grounded. It wasn't about what anyone else thought. It was about me and what I could handle. I also talked to a close friend of mine. He's been through his own rough patches in life, so I figured he might have some perspective. And like my brother, he didn't try to push me one way or the other. He just reminded me that whatever I decide, I'm not going through this alone. He'd be there, no matter what. Talking to them didn't magically fix everything, but it helped. For the first time in days, I didn't feel like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders all by myself. And sometimes, that's all you need. Just someone to remind you that you're not alone in this. After talking to my brother and my friend, something started to shift inside me. I wasn't okay, far from it. But for the first time in a while, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I realized that no matter what happened with Lisa, no matter whether I stayed or left, I had to start focusing on myself. I had to start rebuilding. It wasn't easy. The first step was just getting out of bed in the morning without feeling like my whole life was crashing down. I remember standing in front of the mirror one day, looking at myself, really looking at myself, and thinking, I can't let this break me. I won't. I started doing small things, things I used to love, but had let slip away over the years. I went back to the gym, not to punish myself, but to feel stronger, to remind myself that I still had control over my own body, my own life. And with every workout, I felt a little bit of that old confidence creeping back. It wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about proving to myself that I was still capable of moving forward. I also started reconnecting with old hobbies, things that made me feel like me again. I picked up my guitar, something I hadn't done in years. I'm not a great musician or anything, but there's something about strumming those strings that helps quiet my mind. For a little while, I could lose myself in the music and forget about everything else. But it wasn't just about physical strength or distractions. I knew that rebuilding meant facing the emotional side of things too. So, I started therapy. I didn't want to admit it at first. Going to therapy felt like admitting I was broken. But honestly, it was one of the best decisions I made. Talking to someone who wasn't involved, someone who could just listen and help me sort through the mess in my head. It made a huge difference. In therapy, I started to understand that my worth wasn't tied to Lisa or what she did. It wasn't tied to how much money I made or how successful I was. My worth was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I started to believe that. I wasn't fully healed. I didn't have all the answers, but I was starting to feel stronger. I was beginning to realize that this situation, this betrayal, it didn't define me. I wasn't going to let it. I could still build a life for myself, a life that I was proud of, whether Lisa was in it or not. Time went by, and little by little, I started feeling more like myself again. I wasn't fully healed. I don't know if anyone ever really gets over something like this, but I was in a better place. I had picked myself up, piece by piece, and started putting my life back together. And that's when Sarah came into the picture. I wasn't looking for anyone. I honestly thought I'd sworn off relationships for good, at least for a long while. But sometimes, life has a way of surprising you. I met Sarah through a mutual friend. It wasn't anything special at first, just a group of us hanging out for dinner. I didn't think much of it, but there was something about her. She wasn't flashy, didn't try too hard to be something she wasn't. She was just real. And for the first time in a long time, I found myself enjoying someone's company without the weight of everything hanging over me. I wasn't comparing her to Lisa. I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was just present. We started talking more after that, texting here and there, grabbing coffee. It felt easy. No pressure, no expectations, and to be honest, that scared me. After what happened with Lisa, I wasn't sure I could ever trust someone like that again. I had built these walls around myself, telling myself I wouldn't let anyone in again, not fully. But Sarah, she was patient. She didn't push. She just listened. And over time, I started to let my guard down. The thing about trust is that it's not something you can force. You can't just decide to trust someone. It's something that has to grow, slowly, over time. And with Sarah, that's what started happening. I didn't even realize it at first, but little by little, I started letting her in. I started sharing more of myself, my fears, my doubts, and she didn't run away. She didn't judge. She just accepted me as I was. There were moments, plenty of moments when I doubted, when I wondered if I was making the same mistake all over again. But Sarah never gave me a reason to question her. She was open, honest. And when I told her about Lisa, about everything that happened, she just sat there, held my hand and said, "I'm sorry you went through that, but I'm here now." I wasn't sure I was ready for another relationship, but something about Sarah felt different. It wasn't about rushing into something or trying to fill the void Lisa left. It was about building something new, something real, with someone who made me feel safe again. I'm not saying it was easy. There were days when the doubt crept back in, when I questioned if I could ever fully trust anyone again. But Sarah, she stuck by me, and slowly, that trust started to rebuild. I was learning to let go, to believe again. And for the first time in a long time, I could see the possibility of a future, one that wasn't defined by my past, but by what was ahead of me. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be sitting here, talking about finding new love and feeling happy again, I wouldn't have believed you. Back then, I couldn't see past the hurt, the betrayal. Everything felt dark, like I'd never get out from under it. But here I am. Sarah didn't just come into my life and fix everything. That's not how it works. I had to put in the work. I had to heal on my own, rebuild my confidence, and learn how to trust myself again. But once I did, once I let go of the past, I realized something. I wasn't broken. I wasn't ruined by what happened with Lisa. It didn't define me. It was just a chapter in my life, not the whole story. With Sarah, I learned what it meant to truly move forward, to start fresh, not with the baggage of my past weighing me down, but with a new perspective. She taught me that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. It doesn't have to fit some fairy tale ideal to make you happy. It just has to be honest. And that's what we have. We've been together for a while now, and I can honestly say that I'm happy. I'm not waiting for the other shoe to drop anymore. I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if I'm about to get hurt again. I'm just living in the moment, enjoying the life we're building together. That's the thing about life. It keeps moving, whether you're ready for it or not. And sometimes, the things you think will break you end up being the things that set you free. I never thought I'd be grateful for what happened with Lisa. It was painful, and I wouldn't wish that kind of betrayal on anyone. But looking back, I can see how it forced me to grow, how it made me stronger, more sure of who I am and what I want. I'm not saying everything is perfect now. Life isn't perfect, but I've found peace. I've found love again in a way I never expected. And most importantly, I've found myself. So, if you're going through something like this, if you're in the middle of your own storm, just remember, this isn't the end. It might feel like it, but it's not. There's more ahead. More love, more life, more happiness. You just have to keep going, keep pushing forward. And one day, you'll look back and realize that you made it through. That's what I did. And I'm here to tell you that it gets better. It really does.